Hey guys, today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about metabolism and what does that mean? We hear about it all the time. People talk about their metabolism being fast or slow or whatever. We think of it as it pertains to weight, but it's really the chemical processes that are going on inside our body that allow for us to function normally. And that is a process of breaking down the food. So we eat the food, our body breaks it down. That's the metabolism. And then also the process of taking that food, the nutrients, and building the body, growing, laying down muscle tissue, bone tissue, whatever, and repairing our body if we have wounds or injuries or even micro injuries. Like if we go and lift weights, that being sore is the process of breaking down those muscle tissues, and then the metabolism lays down new tissue into those torn up areas. That's why the rest process is so important. But anyway, I'm off on a little bit of a tangent here. So examples of metabolic pathways would be, for example, breaking down glucose, but also breaking down part of the body to create glucose. So our body actually can take protein from our muscles, break it down into amino acids, and then use lactate and turn that into sugar, actually. So that's called gluconeogenesis, and it's done in our liver. And so it's very interesting how our body does all this stuff, but also I want to talk about like what happens if it's not working properly. It's like a disordered metabolism or metabolic disorder, right? So I want to kind of go over a list of a few different diseases that you are probably very familiar with. Every one of these are metabolic diseases, or at least they start out that way. There's a disorder in our metabolic process that leads to these diseases. So type 1, type 2, or gestational diabetes, diabetes mellitus. There's other diabetes out there, but we're talking specifically about diabetes mellitus that's characterized by the elevated blood sugar. And so that blood sugar is elevated and the body will release a bunch of insulin. Type 1 and type 2 are very different. I'm really going to explain type 2 more because it's more common. But so the body will produce more insulin in response to the blood sugar, but eventually, so that insulin, think of it like a key. It unlocks the cell to put the sugar into the cell, and that's in the bloodstream. So the sugar's in the blood circulating, and then the key, which is the insulin, unlocks the cell and puts the sugar into the cell. And then once that sugar's in the cell, then that sugar can be used for energy. And so when we've eaten too much sugar, our cells get resistant, or you'll hear the term insulin resistance, which is the next one I'm going to talk about, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes, and also obesity and being overweight, which is my next one. So all of these kind of go hand in hand, and as metabolic diseases tend to do. So it goes to unlock the cell, and then the cells say, hey, we don't need you anymore. We've got plenty of sugar in here. We can't fit anymore in the cell. And so then the sugar stays circulating in the blood, and then it causes the blood sugar to go higher, which then causes the pancreas to pump out even more insulin. So that's why it's so important to get your insulin level checked, because the insulin is even the high elevated insulin happens even before these elevated sugars happen, because then it pumps out even more insulin in order to force that sugar into the cells. And then that causes people to hold on to weight. That's why so many type 2 diabetics, once they end up on exogenous insulin, exogenous is where you like inject it into your body, they have a hard time losing the weight because the body is being told to store the weight, although it's better than having the elevated blood sugar, because think of all that sugar circulating in the bloodstream. And like, think of if I take a bottle of or a cup of water and dissolve a bunch of sugar into it, it gets viscous. And just think about that, just scraping against your the inside of your veins and arteries, and eventually it goes from the arteries into the capillary beds, which is where you have the exchange of nutrients, and it just like over time it just scrapes across it, and that's what causes the cellular damage in the kidneys, leading to dialysis and chronic kidney disease, which is another metabolic disease that I mentioned later on in the list. It leads to often dialysis, and can lead to, of course, cerebral vascular disease. It can lead to dementia issues. It can lead to heart disease, of course, stroke, a heart attack, blindness, and a whole bunch of other things just by destroying those microvascular um, um, pathways, the capillary beds. And so all that sugar, you want it out of the bloodstream, because that's basically going to just cause you to rust and die early. So then the alternative is to shove it into the cells, which eventually causes us to gain more and more and more weight. And so that's why it's so important to get the blood sugar down, avoiding processed foods, carbohydrates, the bad carbohydrates. I don't think it's important to avoid all carbohydrates at all times, but there's a time and a place for them because they have their own nutrients that are important. So also metabolic syndrome, and that's just a cluster of different conditions. If you have that, and I had metabolic syndrome, I was obese, I was insulin resistant, I was developing type 2 diabetes, I was pre-diabetic. So I get it. When you let your health go, as I did, you pay these consequences that are very high. And so that's why I want to talk to you guys about this stuff, because even though I knew better and I still allowed this to happen, because I just wasn't taking good care of myself. But metabolic syndrome is increased blood pressure, greater 130 over 80, fasting blood, a combination of these five. So fasting blood sugar of greater than 100, excess body fat around the waist, so it's more than 35 for women and more than 40 for men. HDL less than 40, cholesterol, it's a type of cholesterol, and an HDL less than 50 in women. Triglycerides greater than 150. Triglycerides are the extra calories from alcohol, sugars, and fats that circulate in your bloodstream. High indicator of heart disease, or predictor of future heart disease if you don't already have it. Also, another metabolic disorder or disease or problem that can develop is sarcopenia. Now, we all will eventually, if we live long enough, deal with some issues of sarcopenia, and until we get better at anti-aging techniques and all those things that I'm a big fan of, as well, as you guys know. So sarcopenia is the wasting of the muscle tissue, where it just starts to waste away. And even when you are exercising and that sort of thing, but of course it happens faster when you're not exercising. Another one is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is a hormonal disorder that happens among reproductive age women, and it's linked to insulin resistance again, obesity, abnormal hormones. You notice the pattern here. They're all like insulin insulin resistance and obesity and triglycerides and all that sort of thing. Atherosclerosis, that's a buildup of the fat, cholesterols, and other substances that get into the artery walls. So think of your artery walls as like a tube, like a hose. Obviously, if you get a bunch of buildup, then of plaques that are atherosclerotic, and sclerosis means like a narrowing, then it narrows that tube. Also non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That is an accumulation of fat in the liver. So if you have a bunch of fatty tissue in the liver, then the liver doesn't function as well. Another one is sleep apnea. And that is where people will be sleeping and then they stop breathing. And it's interesting to note that the sleep apnea can lead to metabolic disease, but also metabolic disease can lead to sleep apnea. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Both need to be addressed. Thyroid disorders, that really is a long and involved conversation that we can have another time. I'm a big fan of learning more and more about the thyroid all the time, because I actually had thyroid cancer when I was much younger, and wish I knew now or wish I knew then what I know now, because I believe I could have prevented it if I had understood that better. So anyway, these are a lot of disorders that come along if our metabolism is not functioning properly, which is, of course, very important. And so I'm actually, I think I've mentioned, I'm working on a metabolic reset program. I've taken I have a few different programs that I've been involved in, and I'm taking the best of several of them to produce a reset program that I think is fundamental to health, that I'll be launching at a later time. I'll let you guys know about it when I get that out. But that's kind of the first step in health, in my opinion, because if these processes are not working well in your body, then nothing else is working well either. So let me know if you have any questions, if this information is helpful. I do have a download that talks about this. If you scroll down on the email, I think there's a link to the website. It's a free download if you guys want to get the 7 habits to, I don't remember what it's called, seven habits to Jackpot Wellness, or something to that effect. You guys can download that. You guys, I'm wishing you radiant health, and I hope this is helpful. You guys have a great day. Bye.